Hi everyone, this is Haider Rifaat and you're watching The Haider Rifaat Show. Today I'm here at Dawn News with the lovely Meher Bokhari. Meher, thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
I would like to start off. Prior to joining the field of journalism, which institution were you affiliated with? I mean, obviously you've established yourself as a very successful young woman. So how has the experience been different?
I actually started my working career in journalism itself. I did a double major in mathematics and business, and I was all set to get into banking and hedge funds, to be more specific. But I mean, that never happened. When I moved back to Pakistan, I started with Sama TV, and there was actually no looking back. So it's been journalism all the way.
So obviously now you are also a working wife, and you have a lovely young daughter. So how do you... Two children.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. So how do you balance both your professional and personal life? Is it hard?
It's very hard. It's very, very hard. And I think anybody who tells you that it isn't, they're misleading you. It's extremely hard because, I mean, it's one thing to say that, one prioritizes their family and their kids, but it's actually very difficult when you actually have to implement it. Journalism, it's a 24-hour job. It's not a 9-to-5 kind of a job. So you need to be on your toes 24 hours, especially with a news show, as you've seen. It's a very hectic day. You need to be on top of your game all the time. So it is very hard. But that being said, I'm lucky because I'm working for an organization which is very understanding. Dawn has actually helped me set up an office at home as well. It works out really well because my timing is flexible, so I can come and go as I like. I try to make my schedule around my children, like when my daughter has to go to school or when my son wakes up, and in the evening if they have their swimming or other activities, then I try to come into work and then leave. I mean, it's a lot of time spent on the roads, but it's worth it. So yeah, it is an uphill task. It's very hard, but I mean, it's not impossible.
So moving on to a more serious issue, as a journalist, from a journalist point of view, I wanted to inquire, what is the core issue that you see in the recent Kashmir mayhem that has been going about with Burhan Wani's killing and so many casualties? What is your take as a journalist on the Kashmir issue?
You see, I actually think that for the longest time we've put Kashmir on the back burner, unfortunately, and it's just been... everything's been about political rhetoric, unfortunately. We haven't been leading from the front. We haven't been engaging the world as we need to, as passionately or aggressively as we need to, not picking up the issue aggressively enough in United Nations. I mean, the United Nations Committee on Human Rights, we're not a member of it. But at the same time, there can be enough lobbying done to make sure that a meeting is convened and this is picked up. But we haven't seen that. That being said, again, you have the Kashmir Committee, which is, of course, which works under the policy of the government, but nevertheless, they have a very important task of actually making and shaping a global narrative on Kashmir. We haven't seen that happen. For the first time, we're seeing that there are segments within India who are speaking up. The intelligentsia is very active. But these kind of segments haven't been bought or given a platform. For the Kashmir Committee, just going on international tours is not enough. You see in this case right now, the entire Muslim Ummah, so to say, and other Muslim countries, they're quiet. Whose work was it exactly to make them come into action or to speak up or to say anything? This is all the legwork, and this is all the kind of work that the Kashmir Committee should have been doing. But we haven't seen that. So that being said, also, the Prime Minister was away for the longest time. He was sick, and then he came back, and then before he could convene a cabinet meeting, the army had a meeting of the corps commanders. They came out with their policy or statements, so to say. And then the cabinet meeting was finally called, but it had about 100 other issues on the agenda. Kashmir wasn't the first and foremost and the only issue on the agenda.
So do you think there's a concrete solution to the Kashmir problem?
I think the biggest thing that we can do is take ownership once again. It has to move beyond rhetoric and beyond statements. You see the aggression from the other side, what Sushma Swaraj just also said right now. She was pretty aggressive. We don't have a full-time foreign minister to be looking at this. That's a huge problem. A full-time foreign minister who's shuttling back and forth between New York and Brussels and Geneva and taking the situation heads on. So these are all problems right now. I mean, I mean, you have Sirajul Haq and Jamaat Islami and other Defy Pakistan people on the streets right now. But there's much more than that we need to do in terms of diplomacy, in terms of lobbying, in terms of making sure that the right narrative, the right of the Kashmiris to decide their own fate about the United Nations Convention and the promises made on plebiscite, they are brought to the forefront. Right now, you're saying that, you're seeing that even America, it says that, the stakeholders need to sit on a table, and it refers only to India and Pakistan, not to Kashmiris, not about Kashmiris. You see the United Nations saying that please show maximum restraint, but United Nations not talking about its own resolution. So these are all things which can actually be easily achieved if we have focus, if we have the right teams.
So do you think Pakistan's media in specific strays away from journalistic ethics when it comes to conducting a balanced interview? Because oftentimes we see there are certain rape cases that are being reported, just for instance, where certain confidential details are being revealed. So do you think this is an issue in Pakistan's media?
I think media ethics is a big subject, and for the longest time, because the media freedom was, we got it at such a high price, and a lot of sacrifice had to be made for it. So for the longest time, we saw that a lot of media practitioners were very possessive of this freedom, and they did not want anybody else to be dictating or setting out any rules or guidelines at all. I mean, if you remember a few years ago, the Punjab Assembly also came out with a resolution regarding this, and then there was talk of parliamentary oversight, and it was very badly and aggressively resisted by media itself. But I think now it's time that a lot of people realize that we do need another body to be overlooking. We do need a set of guidelines and ethics that are implemented. Just like in any channel, you have editorial policies. You need to have that. I mean, you need to have these policies, and you need to have people who are actually implementing it. And whether it's broadcast journalists sitting on television or otherwise, or reporters, they need to be following this. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're speaking in terms of talk shows only, or you're talking generally in terms of news or print media.
News and print media, not much as print media, but the media in terms of highlighting a news story. I mean, this incident happened in Punjab, this incident happened in Sindh, revealing certain confidential details that should not be revealed in the first place. But this is just one aspect of the media's ethics,
it's a very
right?
tiny aspect, absolutely. Like you see, just in the recent past, there was a rule, and everybody is adhering to it right now, that we're not going to show limbs and bloodshed, and after a blast. These are things also we realize later on. So it's a relatively early stage for media. So there's a lot we're learning as we go, and there is a lot of realization that we need to be careful in terms of balanced reporting and balanced journalism. It's an uphill task, but I won't say that nobody's practicing it over here. It's important, for instance, with a story to give both sides of the story, to give all stakeholders on board. And we do see that happening. It's just that there are a few cases who will indulge information that doesn't need to be exposed, or who will, for instance, have one-sided shows, or have one-sided agendas. Yeah, there are agendas. Let's be honest about it. I won't say that media is completely honest and completely free. There are agendas. But I think with time, eventually, there will come a stage where enough maturity will be gained with experience and the passage of time.
So, Meher, according to you, what are some flaws that you see in the current political system of Pakistan? I mean, there are so many flaws, whether it's related to the political parties, whether related to the political arena. So what are some core flaws that you see in the political system of Pakistan that you would like to highlight?
You see, I think as voters and as Pakistanis, we forget that democracy is accountability. It's being answerable to the people. I think that's a big flaw, that I think when parties are voted in, they seem to think that they have this immunity and a 4-year cover, and they're not answerable to the people. But it's actually, democracy is a process of being answerable every single day. So I think that's a big flaw, and that's a general attitude, right? And that being said, I think another very big flaw is the system itself, where individuals seem to be bigger than institutions. So institutions haven't actually strengthened in Pakistan over time. It's always been individuals, and I think think that needs to be worked on. We need structural reforms in this country. The political leadership doesn't seem to be very focused on that. That doesn't seem to be on the agenda. So I think that itself is a very big flaw.
So what are your comments on the recent abduction cases of children in Punjab? Do you have any comments on that?
It's funny because we just did a news segment on it just last night.
I did see that.
Yeah, and it's funny because the stats we're getting and the information we're getting is in complete contrast to what the authorities are saying right now. And apparently the Supreme Court has taken a suo motu notice or is about to. I'm not sure. I think it has today. But it's funny because I saw a press conference of DPO Lahore. He seemed to be giving completely different numbers than the investigation officer from Lahore who I was interviewing the other night. So I mean, yeah, it's very sad. But at the same time, I think as usual, there's just confusion regarding the statistics and the authorities aren't coming clean.
So Meher, lastly, I would like to ask, as a journalist, what is your one piece of advice that you would like to give for up-and-coming journalists who aspire to be like you, as I do myself?
Thank you. That's very kind of you. One piece of it, just read as much as you can. I think you see, it's in this field, it has to be passion.
Yes.
It cannot be anything else. If you need to, I mean, it's easy to come in, but in order to survive and make a name, you have to be crazy passionate about your work. So, and for that, you also have to understand that there never comes a point when you know enough. You can never be a know-it-all, because the day you think that you know enough, that's literally suicide for your career. So read as much as you can, be on top of your game in terms of what's happening nationally, what's happening internationally. The more you read, the more you engage, the better you will be at your work.
Thank you so much, Meher. It's always a pleasure. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more updates every week. That's it. Until then, take care. Allah Hafiz.